Hi, my name is Tom Van Sage. I am the chair of the research core team for the FMA Health Initiative. The FMA Health Research Core Team has been charged with looking at the discipline of family medicine and coordinating with all of the family medicine organizations, the 8 family medicine organizations, and we have been looking specifically at the domain of research. And with regard to that, we're focused in on where the gaps might be between the various organizations, and what might there be places where we can dig in and look for some improvements. So some of the key things that we've been focused on over the last several years has been a bibliometric analysis of all of the research that's been done in family medicine, which has resulted in a pretty nice report that's being developed that kind of gives us a total picture of where the research has been over the last couple of decades, which I think is helpful in terms of bringing everything into one place. That, we call it the bright spots. Where are the research bright spots? And bringing all that into one place, I think, is hopefully going to be very helpful. Another thing that I'll highlight is the core team has led the way with regard to what are being called the Starfield Summits. And so we've had 3 Starfield Summits thus far. The first one was held in Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago, and it focused on really just kind of a plethora of issues related to family medicine. And but it's nice that that emerged out of this group, and then we've had 2 subsequent Starfield Summits as well that we're really excited about. So we're also thinking about, so what happens to these Starfield Summits going forward? I mean, are they going to be continued? Will they fit under a certain umbrella? What do we need to do to continue to use the Barbara Starfield name and brand? And so that's the kind of stuff we're thinking about as we work towards the future. And then the final really big project that we're now working on, we're developing and bringing to fruition, is what we're calling a mapping project. We're actually looking at mapping the entire discipline. All of the organizations, the 8 family medicine organizations, are all engaged in research just to one extent or another. And so our efforts right now are really zeroing in on what are each of those 8 efforts focused on. Again, where are the gaps, and then where could we then begin building a plan for the future regarding research, and how can we best move that forward related to the future of family medicine. That's an interesting question. I think that we struggle with, in family medicine, with where does research fit into the big picture. I think that we're focused around, working towards addressing certain needs, addressing inequities within family medicine, within public health. And the bottom line is we're focused on looking at how do we know what things to focus on? How do we know what the right next steps should be? And I think that related to our role in the Family Medicine for America's Health Initiative, it's really doing that background research. It's really figuring out the data that really will best inform the future of family medicine and help move the discipline forward from from an evidence-based perspective, as opposed to just looking at, what do we think is the right next thing to do. And so research, we believe, has a fundamental role in the entire discipline. It's critical to enabling all of us to really know what the right next best thing to do would be, and how we think that should be done. And so research really underlays the entire discipline, and as we're figuring out, how does it fit in, where do we go with it, we're trying to just keep it more front and center, figuring out how to position research and researchers for success and enable them to really do the work that needs to be done in order to move everybody forward to a better place. I think the changes in the healthcare landscape are dramatically, or could dramatically impact research and researchers, certainly in the United States, I mean, we're very focused on, U.S. federal funding sources in terms of, whether money will continue to be available through the National Institute for Health or programs like ARC and PCORI, and whether or not that funding will continue, whether it will get totally shut off. So becoming advocates, I think, in this time of dramatic change in the healthcare landscape is critical. But really, again, zeroing in on healthcare research, primary healthcare research, being able to not just allow federal dollars to get sent into specific disease areas. And so we're really looking at the whole person, what's happening when people end up with multi-morbidity situations where they have multiple disease or medical situations, and how do those interact, who's really managing that big picture. And so we really believe fundamentally in a place where that fundamental research ought to be focused on primary care research. So we're looking at that whole person, how do diseases, how do drugs interact with each other, and how ultimately a family doctor, a family medicine researcher can help position a person and their family, and then ultimately where that fits in within a community to really be the most important thing. And so a lot of what we're doing in research right now is focusing in on patients and ensuring that patients, the ultimate user of all of these medical medical practice situations, ultimately are informing the where research is focusing. So we're talking to patients, involving patients with both clinicians, but also with researchers, to kind of create a triangle, if you will, between a patient, clinician, and a researcher. So the patient has a voice in that process and is informing both the clinician and the researcher about what their needs are, what their goals are, that ultimately will inform where the research goes, and then hopefully, what ultimately that clinician will use in their practice with their patients. So it really hopefully comes full circle.